and we will continue our proceedings. Lead counsel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back, Mr. Kante. May I remind you that you are still under oath? And are you ready and able to proceed?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I'm able to proceed.
You ended up your testimony when you started discussing how you were released. You told the commission that you were at some point taken to the headquarters of the prison where you had to write a statement. Thereafter, one day you were asked to come to the headquarters of the prison, and then you were informed that you would be taken to State House and be released afterwards. Is that right?
That's right.
Can you tell us who informed you that you were going to be released?
Yeah, the prison officers, actually the protocol was funny, a bit funny, because they told us that we were going to the State House, and they say we may be released. So we went to the State House, and there we were informed that we would have our liberty.
Were you taken alone to State House?
No, I went with a number of officers. Lieutenant Kinte, Lieutenant Drame, Sonko, Captain. Yeah, a number of us were released on that day, yes, I remember.
Do you recall the date?
I'm not good at dates, so sorry for that. I don't remember the day exactly, but I remember a newspaper publication, newspaper publication, talking about it, and the headline, my photo was in the headline saying we were released from prison. So I don't remember the date, sorry.
Was it at the end of November, or of November 1994, or in 1995? Bearing in mind, you said that you spent 3 months in prison.
Yes, I said I spent about 3 months in prison, not precisely, but November 11th met us free. We were free before November 11th incident took place, and before the killing, the alleged killing of Korosise also took place.
You were arrested on the 5th of August, and you believe that by 11 November you were already free, correct?
That's correct.
The day you were taken out of Mile 2 prison and taken to State House, can you tell us what happened at State House when you arrived there?
Yes, we were seated in a circle, attended by members of the council, some prison staff, and I think, yes. So we were lectured on how to behave by the members of the council. So they said, yes, giving us goodwill, release us from prison, we must know how to behave, you know what we did, and so on and so forth. So it looked a bit funny. It appeared as if they had given us, you know, a release based on, they did us a favor by releasing us. Actually, yeah, they did us a favor. They could have kept us there by releasing us, but they should not create the impression that we did something wrong and that they're doing us a favor by releasing us. I remember Jammeh saying that we could all have been shot. You know, we could all have been dead there in prisons. And then we were allowed all of us were allowed in turns to say something. And I remember saying categorically that I do not know why I was in prison, and if anybody could help me clarify why I was there. In any case, yes, if somebody is more powerful than you, puts you in one place and says you will not go out, and all of a sudden comes out and say, yeah, now you can go out. Yes, you can say thank you, I guess. But you can also demand, for some reason or the other, why you were there in the first place. That question still remains unanswered.
Which members of the junta were present at that meeting?
Captain, Lieutenant Singate, Yankuba Ture, Sana Sabali were present.
And of course, Yaya Jammeh.
Quite, yeah, true, Yaya Jammeh.
Were any civilians present at the time?
No, I do not remember civilians taking part, apart from the prison officers. One Gomez, prison officer Gomez, and yeah, I don't remember any others.
How about the press? Were they invited?
Yes, Radio Gambia was there. The other press could have been invited as well, could have been there as well. But I remember Radio Gambia being there, you know, on the television, I think.
Do you recall what your colleagues said before they were released?
Yeah, some of them thanked the junta for releasing them, you know, and pledged that they would cooperate with them in any way possible. Some said that. And I don't remember what others said, but I think everybody was happy, and anybody could have said anything.
Was that actually expected, that you would be thankful and grateful for your release?
I guess that was the objective of the meeting, to prove to Gambians that we've been guilty of one thing or the other, but the junta, you know, so nice to us that they could release us unconditionally, and you know, that they were nice. They wanted to portray a good image of themselves, although that was not appropriate.
How do you feel? How did you feel being portrayed in that manner? Yeah, again, humiliated, you know, that we would be paraded before television and radio, and the public will see us paraded. And I think this is a pattern. We've seen it, you know, repeat itself many times. Even after people arrested, they go to face the president, tell him, hey, thank you very much, you know, for being my savior. Yeah, I owe allegiance to you. So it has been a pattern. I think maybe they thought that's a strategy to win hearts and minds, but it's always had an opposite effect. Win hearts and minds of who?
I guess the people who are listening, the country people, Gambian people, because that's the audience.
Do you think that it was also designed to win the hearts and minds of not only the Gambian people who are watching, but also the families of those who were incarcerated, but significantly, the victims themselves, you who were being released? What do you say to that?
Yeah, if that was the objective, if the objective was to not only win the hearts and minds of Gambians, but the victims and their families, I think it has failed. It had failed. For me, as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't thankful. It made me question their motives even further. It made me more critical of them, the way they did things. And more so when I went into the civil service as governor. My advice had always been that the people come first. and that the junta attitude and the military tendency of doing things should stop, and democracy and the rule of law should be the order of the day. So it did not have that effect on me as far as I am concerned.
But it won your loyalty, didn't it?
Yeah, it won my loyalty to the people of the Gambia and to the Constitution. More to understand that, a mistake has been made, because the good intention was for us to change government and hand over power back to the people. But it appeared that a junta thing was being built up, so there will be a continuation of the junta in government, and that became the thing. So whether it won my loyalty to the junta or not, I am not quite sure of that. It didn't. It didn't. Because even as commissioner, or the now governor of West Coast region, then elected, the junta was preparing to contest elections. Yahya Jammeh was preparing to contest elections, and we were invited in to attend. But assobis were distributed, to party attire was distributed to people, even within the military, and I refused to put the assobi on. I went there with my military stuff, to the chagrin of, again, Edward Singate, who asked why I did not put that thing on. I just brushed it off and said, my tailor was late to sew.
Okay, let's for now limit it to the period of your release and the immediate aftermath. What did you do after the day you were released?
The day I was released, I went home. I think that was needed to recuperate, to take stock of what happened to me, to be with family and friends. That was important. So I confined myself to my comfort zone, which is home. So that's the only thing I could have done.
During your release, were you informed whether you were still in the force or not?
Yet I was informed that I could come back to the junta. But I don't think I was prepared for that, and I was only interested in going back to my job. So that's what I accepted.
While you were home recuperating, did you receive any visits from colleagues of yours?
Yes, Lieutenant Barrow.
Barrow who?
Basiru Barrow visited me one evening with Captain Momodu Baji, the present security advisor to the president.
Does he have another name by which he is known?
Sankare Baji. They came to my home to pay a courtesy call, to visit me, to say sorry for what has happened to me. And that evening, I remember Baji came back and said that we should go to the beach so I could wash the bad luck off my body. And I took that sincerely. I took that very seriously, and I said, yeah, thank you very much for that. So I complied. We went to the beach side. I took bath. We both plunged into the water, washed, and then came back home. That was it.
How soon was that visit after your release?
This was a few days. It could have been the next day or 2 days after.
Do you recall how many days after that did November 11 incident occur?
About a week.
You said Lieutenant Basiru Barrow came to you with Baji. Apart from basic pleasantries, did they tell you anything else that was in the offing?
No.
You and, correct me if I'm wrong, but you and Basiru Barrow were the most senior officers amongst those who were planning the coup, correct?
Yeah, Barrow was the most senior. I think I was the next senior person, yes.
You did not see Barrow again during the period of your detention, correct?
No, during the period of my detention, no, I didn't see Barrow.
During the period you were spokesperson for the junta, did you see him?
No, I didn't see him, although I understand he was in Yundu, at Yundu, stationed there. But I didn't have the opportunity then to leave the State House and come to the barracks, so I couldn't see him.
Did you at any point in time have an opportunity to discuss with him that what you were in fact planning together has happened, but this time by a different set of people?
No.
You did not even discuss that when he came to your house, is that right?
No, we didn't discuss anything about what had happened. All that they said was they came to visit me as colleagues, that I was in prison, that we now released, and they felt like coming to me to say sorry for what happened to you. I guess that was all, but nothing else was discussed. I guess there was no time to discuss anything even.
By that answer, I take it that you also did not discuss what was going to happen, correct?
If I understood you, are you saying that I should have informed him of something that was about to happen?
No, perhaps let me explain the question. What I meant to say was that at this time you said you did not discuss anything else apart from how are you feeling and things like that. So I said that going by that answer, you are suggesting that you did not discuss anything about what was about to happen, what was going to happen in the future, right?
That's correct.
For how long did you stay at home before you resumed work?
Well, I am not sure, but it could have been 2 weeks or more. 2 weeks or more, but I cannot put a figure against it, I don't know. But then I had some time to recuperate before going back to work.
Do you recall where you were on November 11, 1994?
Yes, I was at home. I was at home on November 11, 1994.
When you woke up on the morning of November 12, 1994, did you hear anything concerning the military?
Yeah, there was an announcement on Radio Gambia that there was a a failed coup by Lieutenant Sabari, and that lives were lost, some people were killed in exchange of fire. So, and that is how it was announced. It worried me a little. The name Barrow was mentioned. And this was the Barrow who came to me to pay a courtesy call on me. So it was a little frightening. I wasn't sure. So, but that's how I got the news.
Who announced the news?
You mean the news of the coup, which was Sana Sabari?
In which context was Lieutenant Barrow mentioned?
I don't know if his name was mentioned in that press release, but there was mention of a group of soldiers who intended to take up arms against the junta, the new government, and that they've been defeated. They had been defeated, and the situation was calm, although some people lost lives, and that was it. So the name Barrow, I can't remember it. But later, the scenario became clear as time went on. The BBC announced that Barrow was the leader of those who intended to overthrow the government of Yahya Jammeh.
Did you eventually find out who else was killed?
No, in fact, I had the opportunity to call Sabali, at home. I called him and I asked what was going on. He said, nothing extraordinary. Some of these junior officers, the officers that we promoted, who would not have been officers if we had not changed the government, decided to rebel against us, but we put it down. That was what he said. And that was the end of my conversation with him.
Did he explain how those people were killed or how they died?
No, I didn't press him on that. I just took him for his words that there was an exchange of fire between the loyal forces and the rebels. And as a result, some people had to lose their lives. So I couldn't press him any further. I wanted clarification, what was going on, and that's what he told me. So I took him for his words.
You told the commission earlier that Mr. Sabali was not a truthful person. Did you believe him?
Even if no, I couldn't believe him per se. But even if I didn't believe him, there was nothing I could do. I couldn't say no. You were lying. These people did not do anything. You killed them. I couldn't do that. He said they were attacked, and they responded, and then some people died. That's what he said. I said, is it over? He said, yes, it's over. But it wasn't.
What happened after that?
Yes, stories started trickling that there were a number of soldiers who were executed in barracks, Yundum barracks, others were executed at Fajara barracks, and some were executed in the forest of Jambur or something, and others escaped thereafter. So it couldn't be true that it was as simple as rebels against loyal forces. Some people died, and that was it. That if I had believed that, then I would have been stupid.
And that is based on what? What prompted you to what enabled you to make that calculation and arrive at that type of a conclusion?
Because I spoke to other people. I spoke to other soldiers, other officers, who confirmed to me that some people were killed elsewhere. Extrajudicial executions were conducted in those barracks and elsewhere. So it was not a clear-cut enemy versus enemy shooting at each other. No, it was not like that. They were captured and executed. That's what they told me.
The initial narrative you received from Sana Sabally, did it make military sense to you?
No, I think he was trying to cut a long story short. And I wasn't even interested in his I don't think I would be interested in his long narration, because I know that he was covering up something. And obviously, if I had believed him, then I would be naive. Stories started coming out. At that stage, I was also very, very concerned about my safety. The fact that somebody who was named as the ringleader happened to visit me in the military circles, that was very dangerous. I had an explanation to make. Fortunately, it didn't happen. I wasn't picked up for it. I wasn't questioned for it.
And then what happened regarding your job?
When I was contacted by the then commander of the Army Commander Babukar, Colonel Babukar Jatta, who asked me to come report to work and take up my responsibilities.
Did you report to work?
Yes, I reported to work.
This time around, which position did you hold?
I went back to my old job as the public relations officer, but with additional responsibility of administration and logistics, which means every correspondent that left the Army headquarters had to pass through me or had to bear my signature to the Ministry of Defense or to the press and the public.
For how long did you perform that role?
Remember, I left that job when I was appointed as Commissioner, Governor, West Coast Region.
Do you recall the date?
Again, I don't know. I'll have to do research because some of my papers just all disappeared. I just couldn't get the dates off head, but and it was about June, again, 1996.
For how long did you serve as commissioner?
I served as commissioner in in West Coast region for about a year before being transferred to Central River region.
Was that your last posting?
But no, that was not my last posting. I came to North Bank region again as governor.
Do you recall the date?
Yeah, that was in, I think, November 1999.
You served as governor until when?
I served as governor until 20th of June 2000.
What happened? Why did you leave?
Well, I was removed, I think, but in a very, they said I was removed, but I was just not being removed. I was being arrested by the NIA, who were armed. And funnily, they came with my successor, somebody who was my deputy in Brikama. They brought him with them in the same car and told me that he was going to take over from me and that I must prepare handing over to that guy and then go with them to Banjul.
Can you tell us who was involved in that? The names of the people that came to inform you that you were being relieved of your post and that you should go with them to Banjul?
One for the Bari was their leader, was the group leader. Haidara and Soul. I wasn't familiar with NIA people, so but for everybody I know, Soul introduced himself. You know, the other guy also, Haidara, I know, from pictures that I see of him afterwards, you know.
You said they were armed. Can you tell us what they were armed with?
Well, they had pistols in their jackets, and I believe they had, you know, gas canisters as well.
And can you explain the process, how it happened, how they arrived at your office, and what transpired thereafter?
It's a long story, but I received a call from a colleague earlier in the day who informed me that I was removed from office and that I should be careful. But I had no time to ponder over what. I just continued with my normal duties, waiting for whatever. I had no reason not to believe him, but I took him seriously nonetheless. After a few minutes, less than half an hour, this group came. Instead of my oddly announcing them, you know, they bumped into my office. They just appeared in front of me and then said I was removed from office and then placed a letter of removal on top of my desk. Then they told me to hand over quickly to the gentleman they came with, Suleiman Keita, who was my deputy in Brikama. So naturally, I felt it was not the right way to be dismissed from a job. Something must be very, very fishy. The reason why they would come with my successor and not him coming alone, why was the letter not delivered by somebody else other than the NIA, and why did they bump into my office unceremoniously? So I had to use my sixth sense. And then I knew they were up to something, and they were armed. That was the time I gradually prepared my escape.
And what did you do?
First, I pretended I was not worried. I pretended I believed them, and I did not show any sign of confrontation with them. I made them relax about me. I gave them a place to sit, gave them some tea, told the secretary to give them tea, and some groundnut maraba, I call it. They were chewing maraba as if they were so hungry. You know. So they came, they started a conversation with me when that happened. They started a conversation and said, oh, you know, maybe you were promoted, maybe you are now a cabinet minister, promoted to the minister. I knew those were tactics to get me without resistance.
Who was the leader of the group?
No, I said Fodebari was the leader. But I would continue. Luckily or funnily, he left them there and proceeded with their car somewhere else.
And what did you do after that?
Well, now it's 2-1 instead of 3-1. It was 2-1. And that they had no vehicle. I had a vehicle. So I called my driver and I told the police oddly to tell the driver to stand by, go collect fuel, because we were going to Banjul. Then I briefed him to tell the driver to stand by in their presence. So there was no need, I think, for them to worry about anything. This was a done deal. I was ready to go with them. and there was no need to do anything. Just wait for me to get prepared and go. Now I told them, listen, I've got to go to the house, a stone throw from my office, within the same complex, to tell my wife I was going to Banjul. In the beginning, they followed me halfway through, but for some reason, by divine intervention, they stopped and said, okay, go, we'll wait for you in the office. That's a private, it's your private place. Go do whatever, and then we'll wait for you in the office.
Did you go into your house?
Yes, I entered the house. I went to my house. I briefed my wife. I told my wife what was happening. She knew already. The whole environment was tense. Everybody knew, the staff, everything. The cleaners, cooks. I told the finance man to gather everybody indoors. I was going to brief them about something because I did not want them to see me jumping over the fence and going. So they all gathered inside. I told my wife to give me a briefcase where my documents were, and that was done. The driver was already at the back of the building waiting. As soon as I was ready, I jumped over, then we went.
Jumped over what?
I couldn't jump over, well, there was no need. That was a fence. There was a fence block there, cement block fence around the premises. It was not high, maybe 8 cars or so.
You jumped over the fence, and then what else did you do?
I found the driver exactly where I told him to park the car. And then I entered. He said, what? I said, we're going. Wherever I ask you to go, that's where we're going. But we are going to a very faraway place.
Did he comply?
Yes, he complied. I guess he even knew what was happening. He complied, and but before we left, he told me he couldn't get fuel, so we had to do something about fuel. And then that was the time he suggested that we should go to the ferry crossing at Kerawan to buy some from the vendors there. So when we went, we were lucky that we could get a full tank from them. Then we drove back again through Njawara to Kermusa and to Porohan in Senegal.
Porohan in Senegal. As you were escaping, did you see Fodebari or any members of the group he came with?
No, Fodebari was long gone. So the rest I understand, were still waiting in the office until lunch was ready, and they started eating even the lunch there. And by then, I think I was already in Senegal.
Why Porohan in Senegal, of all places?
Yeah, it was a familiar territory because my mother's sister married there and had a family. And my cousins are still there. They still live there. Childhood days, I would trek even on foot, go there and back. So that was a familiar territory. And I thought I should make a leapfrog, to get to my destination.
Which was?
Obviously, Dhaka.
And what happened when you arrived in Porohan?
The moment I arrived, my demeanor, my face and appearance showed stress, plus the driver, both of us. So my brothers knew something went wrong. My cousins knew something went wrong. Then I released the driver. I said, take the car back, go through my hometown, Jabakunda, and then finally to Kerawan. And you can tell them you dropped me in Jabakunda. So that you would not be in trouble. So I stayed in Porohan for that night. And then the following night, some people, intelligence officers, came there to find out whether I was actually there.
Intelligence officers from where?
From the NIA.
Of which country?
A Gambian NIA who were pursuing me right across the border, but not armed, I guess, or maybe they got. Then it wasn't difficult because the border was porous and it's still porous. You can go in and out of Senegal as a security official, but until they reached, probably did not tell anybody anything. They just came, found out exactly where the compound was. Then they asked whether somebody from Gambia, a mechanic from Gambia, came. So my cousin said, no, we do not have a mechanic relative in Gambia. We had the relative we have is a governor of a region, but it's been a long time we haven't seen him.
That wasn't true, was it?
How could that be true? If you ascertain that, then that would be a risk to my life. I was hiding, and it was their duty to hide me. So they would not tell them, yes, he is here, he is hiding here, no?
Where exactly did they hide you, and why?
Well, I told them my life was at stake. My life was at risk. I was being pursued by the Jammeh government, and that I am on the process of escaping. So this is my first stop. So they were very fast thinking. They took me to a Marabu home, the Murids. The Murid compound is a compound in a compound in a compound. So I was placed in the middle of a very big compound where you have to pass one compound, go into another compound before you reach me in the middle. So in the end, there was no fear that anybody could do anything about me unless you pass through the Murids.
Did that provide special cover to you? The fact that this was the home of the Murids, did that provide special cover?
Oh yes, that was very, very important at that moment in time. Because even my brothers were not sure my cousins were not sure they could protect me against them. Because they even went through the gendarmes, the police to declare that somebody robbed a bank, and ran into Senegal. So you will not know what could happen to you. So I went into a compound where even the authorities would ask for permission in order to get somebody like that.
Which authorities are you referring to?
I guess even the Senegalese authorities would want to find out what was going on. If you are in the Murid compound, they will not just bump into the Murid compound and get you.
You're suggesting to us that so powerful are the Murids that not even the Senegalese authorities would just go in and grab you. It wouldn't be that easy.
Oh yes, Touba is like that. Touba belong to the Murids. They collect tax and spend on themselves. They are not subject to a lot of laws to the Senegalese authorities. Then, I don't know if now. And the same goes for Porokhane.
And for how long did you remain in Porokhane?
I remained in Porokhane for a week because I arrived there on a Thursday and left on a Thursday.
While you were there, did anything happen to you?
No, nothing happened to me in Porokhane. I think I was trying to strategize my next move. While they were not sure anymore if I was there, they proceeded to Dakar when I was in Porokhane.
Who are you
The
referring to?
NIA proceeded to Dakar, I understand, while I was still in Porokhane. And that was very helpful. But as soon as they realized that I was not in Dakar, now I went to Dakar.
And that would be 1 week after you arrived in Porokhane, correct?
Correct.
And What did you do when you arrived in Dakar?
My cousin drove me with an agent of the Marabu to another Marabu home in Pout, very close to Chess.
Why was that necessary?
I needed some protection. I needed somebody to tell a story in case something happened to me. And I also needed somebody who could argue out and say, no, this will not happen until that happens. And so I got that cover. I was lucky. I was really lucky.
Did you eventually arrive in Dakar?
Yes, after a week again, I left there to go to Dakar to register with the UNHCR and the government of Senegal. As I deposited my asylum.
And what happened after you deposited your asylum?
Yeah, the asylum process continued, but not without the normal pursuit. I think they stepped up. The Gambia government stepped up its search for me in Dakar, because then I think they knew now that I was in Dakar, and they came and made some papers, extradition papers with the authorities in Senegal that I should be extradited back to the Gambia for doing something which I don't know about.
Did you have reason to report to Senegal your presence to Senegalese authorities?
Yes, because once you go to the UNHCR and deposit an asylum, you then have to go and face the Senegalese police, for further registration, for your protection, or otherwise, whatever. But they need to know. It's their country. They need to know you are around. And I was not comfortable being lost. I want somebody to know I was around.
And what happened there?
Yeah, the situation remains so. I hide and seek with the authorities of Gambian authorities who were reportedly being there all the time, pursuing us, some of us, the dissidents there, including me, had periodic briefings from the Senegalese that Gambian authorities were pursuing me, and they gave reasons for wanting to get me extradited, including the office of the president, the secretary. There was a secretary who, military gendarme officer who was very high there. He informed me that I should, whenever something funny was about to happen, he would ask me to lie low, and then he was briefing me. Once he told me, no, I don't know how much longer the Yaya Jammeh, why all the time they are asking, what about you? So I said, I don't know. I don't know what I did.
Do you know whether the NIA or Gambian authorities used other means to get you?
Yes, they were planning every means to get me. One moment they used the wife of the late choral legend Lalo Keba Drame's wife, Kurambisa, to get me, really trap me. She wanted, I think I was informed even that she wanted to invite me for lunch. I said, but I don't know her. I can't go and have lunch with somebody I don't know. And then they said, the police informed me once also that she brought some documents. She said she had some documents, air tickets, and some money from a relative called Ejete, surname, in America, who wanted me to immediately leave for America, and that her mission was to give me these papers and money.
How was that perceived by Senegalese authorities?
It was funny to them. It was funny to them because they narrated it to me. And when I asked them, how did you respond? They said, well, we told her to please bring the papers and the money until such time that we see you. We told her we had no idea where you were. But as soon as we saw you, we will give you the papers and the money. And that was then when they discovered that Kura was playing the role of a mole in Dakar against Gambian dissidents in Dakar.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, because it was not a lone situation. The then student leader, Omar Diouf, also went through similar experience while in Dakar. So it was still the same woman and some others who were trying to trap him and us. So it couldn't be just me. It was a pattern.
You said she was a mole in Dakar for Gambian intelligence. Did you eventually know who was her handler?
Yes, Ablai Kujabi. Ablai Kujabi frequented that place, naturally as an intel officer for Gambia, and when something like that was happening, he would naturally be part of it. But I think Ablai and Kurabisan were friends, and that they were involved in this sort of thing against Gambians. So the intelligence officers always asked us to be very careful about them, and once they told me that they had already mounted a surveillance on the compound of Kurabisan.
Did you eventually leave Senegal?
Yes, I did, reluctantly. I wanted to stay in Senegal until I could integrate there properly. But the threat was mounting, so I felt the time had come for me to leave to a far-flung place. So I left for Europe, precisely Switzerland.
That's where you live up to this day, correct?
Correct.
The experience, I'm sure you would agree, is quite interesting. You said you were a junior officer who was angry about a lot of things in the system. You took it upon yourself, with others like you, to plan the forcible overthrow of the constitutional order in the Gambia. That eventually happened by a different group of soldiers, some of whom you planned the initial overthrow with. 22 years, Gambia was ruled by Jammeh. Now here you are. What do you have to say to the Gambian people about that experience?
Well, I know that military rule is not an optimal situation. It's not a desired and constitutional way, proper way to effect change of government. It had been a pattern in Africa. It had been a norm in Africa, all over Africa, with the exception of a few countries. So there is precedent for it. But we came to understand that the politics of Africa was like that. Until the military intervenes, there had always been misrule by civilians. You know, when we define dictatorship, sometimes we tend to think that only the military can be dictators. But you can also have civilian dictators. They transform themselves into dictatorships and use the military, they use the courts, they use the legislature to perpetuate themselves. They rig elections and they annihilate their perceived enemies. So dictatorship is not confined to the military. But again, I would like to reiterate this point, that never again should we ever think of overthrowing government or taking power at the back of the people. And that responsibility also lies with the government to ensure that people have an alternative to change. They must never perpetuate themselves in power. The will of the people must be the determining factor for the governance of every country. When the people vote you out, please go. If the people don't want you, don't stay, because the people are supreme. So I would advise that the military in the Gambia, please stay away from politics, go back to your barracks, do not take orders from politicians to do anything unthinkable, because the Constitution is, we don't want to hold any such truth and reconciliation again. The soldiers should go back to barracks, police should do their duties correctly. But the government also should be aware that the people's will should be respected. The people should have the last say. Power is tempting. Power is very tempting, and it could be very misleading. As soon as we learn this lesson today, that never again should we undergo anything like this, it will be very important for all sides of the equation to understand that the country belongs to all of us. We all have our duties. Politicians, they have their duties to perform. Soldiers and police officers have their duties to perform. Civil society, the press in general, have a duty to perform. And we should not underrate any. And if we work, as long as we work in tandem, as long as we respect each other's responsibilities and rights as citizens, we will have a fairer society, and there will be no rancor, there will be no problems, major problems. There may be problems, but there will be no problems with the constitutional order, and then we will exist in peace and harmony. This is my message for the Gambian people. It is my message for the government, for the soldiers, for the police, and for myself.
Do you regret now, in hindsight, your role in July of 1994?
Yes, in hindsight, I regret that instead of broadening the democratic space in the country, the junta ended up as a dictatorship, a one-man dictatorship finally. I thought that it would have been a smooth transition to democratic constitutionality, where the civilians would rule again and the soldiers went back to barracks. It didn't happen that way. So that was my biggest regret, and for which I sincerely apologize for any role that I might have played in enhancing this process. But I would like to say also that we all have a role to play in a just society. Dictators do not come overnight. They are aided and abetted. All of us should stand up to dictatorship. Anytime it rears its ugly head, it is our duty to stamp it down and ensure that it doesn't happen in this country again.
Thank you, Mr. Kante, for answering my questions. I have no further questions. Mr. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Council, for that. And thank you, Mr. Kante, for that very powerful message. Do the commissioners have any questions they want to put to Mr. Kante? Yes, Commissioner Jones, please go ahead.
Commissioner Jones, thank you, Mr. Kante. I just have a quick question. When you were finally able to escape to Porohan, what about the driver who drove you there? Did anything happen to him and the family you left behind?
Yes, the driver, I understand, was later on arrested also and tortured for doing that service to me. His name is Kasim Keita. They arrested him thereafter and tortured him to confess to confess where he took me. And he bulged in the end, which I don't blame him for. He told them exactly where he took me, and that's why they were able to come straight to Senegal. But fortunately, my family remained unharmed. Of course, there were periodic calls to my home to find out whether I was there, which was a bit funny and perhaps stupid, because I couldn't be at home. But they started, initially they started asking funny questions. Could it be he's here? What do you know about him, and so on? But thereafter, no, there was no other situation.
Thank you. Before giving the floor to Commissioner Carr, Mr. Kante, how did the Senegalese authorities react to hot pursuit by Gambian intelligence services?
Chairman, you may remember that there was a period of political hostility between Gambia and Senegal, and this was the time of President Abdoulaye Wade. So the incident happened at that time. I was lucky. So the government was not very receptive to, Senegalese government was not really interested in pursuing dissidents inside Senegal. So that was a very good timing for me. The Senegalese government ignored their calls because I think they kept changing their stories all the time about what I did. They said I stole money from a bank. I never worked with a bank. And then they said, I think either I killed or I maimed somebody. Stories kept changing, along the way. So I think that probably was another reason why the Senegalese were suspicious of their motive.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr.
Commissioner Carr, I have two questions. The first is, do you remember other dissidents who were also being surveilled by the Gambian authorities in Dakar, aside from, I think, Omar Diouf you mentioned? That's the first question. The second is, if I got you right, you said Jammeh and the others were changed by power. At what point did that change happen? Was it immediately or later in the junta's rule?
I don't understand the second question, but the first question, you said Jammeh was changed by power. No, Jammeh was not changed by power. It was changed by elections. Yahya Jammeh, you mean? The regime ended with elections, him losing elections. But again, I tell people that had it been for only elections, perhaps, and not the threat of and the use of force by ECOWAS and the resilience of the Gambian people, he probably would still have been there. So it was a combination of constitutional order where the people of the Gambia expressed clearly their desire for change through the ballot box. And when that verdict was subverted by Jammeh, the international community saw it fit to intervene and to show him that that was the last straw. And what was the second question? First question.
Other dissidents who were being monitored by the Gambian authorities, aside from, I think, Omar Diouf you mentioned, if I got you right.
Yeah, Omar Diouf and Ibrahim Mane, Juan Ibrahim Mane was also there. Sori Jadama was there. And in the Casamas end also you have people like Sajaka and so on. So there were a number of Gambian dissidents there from the army itself who were in Dakar at the time, in Senegal.
Thank you. Commissioner Samba.
Commissioner Samba, please. Mr. Kande, I wanted to ask you, who, those people who came to officers who came to arrest you, and then you left them there in the office and you go home, and then you escape, what was done to them?
I didn't find out what happened to them because it was later that I knew their real names, their real portfolios. But I know they were not happy, the system wasn't happy with them. The Hydra that was there, that came, is in Canada now. Fodebari may still be in the Gambia. I don't know where Hydra is. But I'm sure they must have also suffered something, which I'm not sure of.
Thank you, Commissioner Kinte.
Commissioner Kinte, Kante, I would want to ask whether they have succeeded in getting any of the dissidents from Senegal over to Gambia in any way.
Yes, this was one Lamin Bojang I know of. Lamin Bojang in Casamas. He was in Casamas. They brought him to Gambia. Fortunately, he wasn't killed, but he was severely tortured, and I think he has passed away now. So I remember him. There may be one or two others which I don't know, but that one is the one I remember. But they kept pursuing us. They kept pursuing those from in the Casamas end, in particular, by Gambian soldiers, by Gambian military officers. And I know that Samsudin Sarr, for example, has been very instrumental in pursuing dissidents in the name of the government, ex-soldiers.
Thank you. Commissioner Imam C.
Commissioner Imam C. Kante ñu ngi lay gërëm ci leeral bi nga leeral.
I am
kon de
Commissioner
lenn
Imam
rek
C.
moo ma jaagal man.
It's only one thing that concerns me.
Man dama yaakaaroon
I believe
soo gisoo ñu def coup d'état bi.
if you see the coup d'etat get happen,
dañu bëggoon a
we wanted
nguur bu fi
to
nekkoon.
they wanted to change the government that was there,
jagal ko defaat ko beneen nguur bu gën a rafet.
so that they can hand it over to another government that is
waaye
patient
nguur
and
bu fi nekkoon moom
lenient.
lim def fii
The
nguur
pre-
bu
the-
passé sax defut ko nag musiba.
The first
Ay
republic,
jafe-jafe yi fi
what they
ne
did,
ak
the
yi
second
fi- ak
republic
yi
is
fi
more
def
of that.
ak yëfi kilifa yi nga xamante ne toral nga leen ay coono bi ngeen di nettali
The
nii.
sufferation that they have
nguur bu fi nekkoon
due to
newut fa rey
people
nit.
killing
pour
people,
deret loolu de man jaaxal na ma lan moo tax lii xew.
that doubts me a lot.
te ñoom coup d'état bi seen yéene bi moo doon
The
pour
coup d'etat
defaral
that
réew mi
they mentioned
ak
is that is
defar
to
ak defar
repair the
bu baax a
country
baax.
and to
Waaw,
establish
loolu
a
laay laaj.
a proper government, and that doubts me a lot.
Thank you very much, Imam, for this very important question. It gives me an opportunity to make an overview of the political situation that led to this unfortunate type of dictatorship that we had in Gambia. Like I said, dictators are not always military officers. They are also sometimes civilians. A dictator is a dictator, civil or military. And all of us contributed one thing or the other to this dictatorship. The judiciary, the legislature, the military, the police, civil society, we all contributed to the dictatorship. If we had all stood true against the dictatorship, probably it would have been different. But we also, our immediate selves, our families, our immediate interests, business people, lobbyists, me first, my family first, my region first, became the order of the day. But we did not know that we were taking the country back instead of coming together and saying no to dictatorship. You see, if we had all said no, dictatorship is not going to thrive in this country, if it would have not. It would have not. So what we did was we emboldened this man and his regime. Whoever comes his way, he pockets you. And the judges are part of that. In fact, mercenary judges from Nigeria, and even our own lawyers, or our own people in the judiciary, they connived. So at the beginning was the military, and the civilian population also played a role in ensuring that dictatorship thrives in this country. So that's why I said here that we must never again allow dictatorship to thrive. Whoever comes your way now and does anything inimical to progress and peace and to the stability of this country, all of us must stand to and make sure it does not happen. The tendency is here that somebody would want to perpetuate himself in power. He has money, he has resources, he has a few sycophants around him. He wants to continue to be president. I'm not saying it is what is happening, but it is likely. Let's say no to it so that we could have peace in the country. Let the will of the people be the basis of the administration of our country. I hope I have answered that question.
Thank you very much for that answer. Any further questions? If not, I would call it a day. Mr. Kante, thank you so much for your testimony. Council, do you have any further points to raise?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We would meet again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Thank you so much, witness.